Good to see y'all. Welcome. You are all being live streamed on YouTube. So if you do not want your video or your face on video, turn your video off at this time. Welcome, though. Welcome to Sorting Soup. I'm excited to have y'all here. We are happy that you've made your way. Gina, Donna, Miss Sharon, Damon, Grant, Amy, Christine, Denise, Mira, Lynn, Bruce. Hey, everybody. I'll tell you, things have been a little crazy in my neck of the woods. I am under a tornado watch, so if things kind of cut off, that's the reason. But we've already gone through the worst of it. The hail and the sirens and all the wackadoo. But we're good. I grew up in Oklahoma and, born in Kansas. I'm used to all that stuff. It's all good.
We don't want you to fly away.
Nope.
Do you think I'd land in Oz?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Wouldn't it be? I think I could handle Oz much better than the place I'm in right now.
I wonder who you would land
might be
on.
better than the United States right now. But
What a thought, y'all. What a thought. Well, anyway, welcome to Sorting Soup Book Club. You have made your way here to our Thursday session, where we are going into chapter 12, The Hidden Threat, Confusion, Complexity, and Manipulation in Project 2025. You would please go to the next slide. I am Cecilia. I am one of the co-facilitators. We have Beth M. We also have Dr. Chris, and I believe we have Dr. Melissa today. I'm not sure though. We do have Laura as a chat monitor and timekeeper, and Boot Money's here. I did see him, so he will be our metaphysical guide and support. So, y'all, today, we do need to start with logistics, though. Beth, would you mind?
Hey. Hi, it's Beth from Southeast Michigan. So we'll just go over some group norms. So if you could just raise your digital hand to contribute to the discussion, keep it civil and constructive. If you perceive a problem, propose a solution, and no spamming in the chat. And if it gets too intense and you feel like you just need a breather, go ahead and take a break or step away if you need to. Okay, next slide.
All right, so like I said, we will be in Project 2025 Survival Guide. I'm sorry, I'm talking over you. Then we'll have discussion, but we don't have any more of our palate cleanser, unfortunately. We are done with our lessons from Cats for Surviving Fascism. I know it has outlived its usefulness. But before we get started, we do need to take a few minutes to step into a small bardo together. And if you are new here, we can go on to the next slide. If you are new here, the bardo is a pause between, well, it's a pause between what was and what it will be. But for our purposes, I will say what we've just done and what comes next. So let your feet hit the ground if they can. Let your seat sit if they can, or if it can, and let your back be supported. If it feels okay, let your eyes close or soften your gaze. Notice what you're bringing into this moment. Any tension, any exhaustion, any buzzing thoughts about the work. You don't have to change any of that. Just let it be here and let it be held by your attention. Now gently bring your focus to your breathing. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Out through your mouth or nose for a count of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale for 3, 2, 3. Out for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let each exhale, longer exhale, tell your nervous system it is safe to soften. If your mind wanders to the to-do list, the media, or conflict, that's normal. Notice it kindly and escort your attention back to the next inhale for 3, 2, 1, and the next exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now widen your attention a bit. Feel the breath in your chest and belly. Feel the weight of your body in the chair, your feet on the floor. Sense the other things in the room around you. On your next in-breath, imagine breathing in the steadiness and courage of those in this fight with you. And on the out-breath, imagine releasing what you can't control in this moment. Inhale, steadiness. Exhale, release. Let's take 3 breaths like that together at your own pace. Inhaling courage. Exhaling what is not yours alone to carry. Now, quietly choose a word that you want to carry out of this bardo. Maybe clarity, solidarity, compassion, or your own word. Let that word sit on your next inhale and ride your next exhale out into the room. And begin to let your breath deepen just a little. Feel more energy return to your face, your hands, your legs. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Maybe roll your shoulders. When you're ready, let your eyes open, your gaze lift. And the bardo of these 3 minutes is complete. We bring this steadiness and the word we chose back into the work together. Okay. So today, we are going to be in chapter 12. You'll find that in the chat if you don't have the book. You're welcome. Namaste. So, The hidden threat, confusion, complexity, and manipulation. This is the penultimate chapter, one of my favorite words. And this is the last chapter before it gets into resistance, what you can still do, because that is what the last chapter it talks about. So this is technically the last chapter that's about Project 2025. Do we have any volunteers? All right. Beth, do we have Laura? There we go. Thank you so much. Y'all, did I mention how great of a team we have? Have I mentioned that lately? I always forget to say those things, but we have such a great team here. Okay. All right,
Thank you,
starting.
Cecilia.
You're welcome. So wait, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for 7 paragraphs.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Misinformation as strategy. If the previous chapters have described a politics of erosion of institutions, norms, and rights, this chapter addresses a more insidious phenomenon, a politics of deliberate confusion. The decay of democracy under Project 2025 does not rely solely on repression, polarization, or economic extraction. It also relies on a cognitive environment in which truth is fragmented, clarity is rare, and public understanding is constantly destabilized. Misinformation in this framework is not a side effect, it is a core strategy, not merely to deceive, but to disorient. The power of misinformation lies not only in its content, but in its structure. It exploits the very nature of modern information systems where speed takes over verification, where repetition mimics credibility, and where algorithms reward outrage more than accuracy. Project 2025 operates with full awareness of this terrain. It does not need to convince everyone of a falsehood. It only needs to create enough noise, enough doubt, enough fatigue that consensus reality becomes impossible to sustain. This is a shift from the propaganda of the 20th century. In traditional authoritarian regimes, disinformation was designed to enforce a single narrative. Under Project 2025, the goal is not to impose uniformity, but to collapse the possibility of shared truth. When the public is inundated with contradictory claims, manipulated statistics, and conflicting authorities, people retreat, not only from debate, but from engagement altogether. The strategy is to replace trust with suspicion, inquiry with passivity, and knowledge with confusion. Misinformation under Project 2025 takes multiple forms, each calibrated for maximum effect. One of the most effective is manufactured complexity. Policies are deliberately written in arcane language, legalese, or technical jargon, making them impenetrable to the general public. By obscuring the real impacts of legislation behind a veil of procedural opacity, accountability is deferred or diffused. Critics who attempt to explain or expose the truth are dismissed as ideologues or conspiracists. Meanwhile, those in power present themselves as the only reliable narrators of events, despite their role in producing the very confusion they claim to clarify. And another tactic is strategic contradiction. Officials or media surrogates issue contradictory statements about key issues on voting, vaccines, climate, crime, creating a situation in which every version of reality is simultaneously affirmed and denied. One day, climate change is real but exaggerated. The next day, it's a hoax. One channel says an election was secure, another calls it stolen. The public, rather than choosing between narratives, often defaults to cynicism. If everyone is lying, the reasoning goes, then no one is worth listening to. This disengagement is precisely the intended outcome. Am I at 7 yet?
Nope, two more.
Okay, in this environment, the tools of verification themselves are undermined. Independent journalism, academic research, and public data are increasingly labeled as biased or corrupted. Experts are redefined not by credentials, but by ideology. A scientist's legitimacy is judged by alignment with the party in power. A judge's rulings are accepted only if they produce favorable outcomes. Fact checkers are dismissed as partisan operatives. In this context, misinformation is not just tolerated, it is empowered by the systematic dismantling of epistemic authority. The strategy extends into education. Under Project 2025, curricula are politicized, libraries are censored, and historical narratives are rewritten. The goal is not simply to remove objectionable content, it is to reshape the boundaries of what can be known. Students are taught not how to think critically, but what to think patriotically. Critical media literacy is replaced by dogma. Inquiry is replaced by indoctrination. When young people are raised in an environment where history is selective, science is provisional, and dissent is dangerous, they become adults more susceptible to manipulation and more distrustful of democratic institutions.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, Dr. Melissa,
There
can
we
you
go.
read the next 6 paragraphs?
Yes, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Social media platforms amplify this process. Project 2025 benefits from a digital ecosystem where misinformation travels faster than correction, where engagement is driven by emotional provocation, and where corporate interests align with minimal content oversight. The virality of falsehood is not a bug of the system, it is a feature. As individuals share, like, and comment on misleading content, they participate, often unwittingly, in the construction of a false consensus. Repetition, visibility, and social proof replace verification. Truth is no longer what is supported by evidence, it is what appears in your feed. What makes misinformation so effective under Project 2025 is that it does not require full belief. Partial belief, probabilistic suspicion, or ambient doubt are enough to fracture civic cohesion. If enough people believe that the media cannot be trusted, that the courts are rigged, that elections are illegitimate, or that science is political, then the institutions that sustain democracy lose their grounding. Misinformation achieves its goal not when people believe lies, but when they stop believing that anything is fully knowable. The implications are devastating. Policy debates become impossible when there is no agreement on basic facts. Crises are hard to address when the public cannot distinguish real threats from manufactured ones. Social movements struggle to build coalitions when their members cannot align on shared realities. In this environment, misinformation is not only a cognitive challenge, it is a structural one. It fragments the public sphere and disables the capacity for collective action. Project 2025 understands this and invests in it. Think tanks, media outlets, influencers, and political operatives produce content not to inform but to saturate. The goal is not a more informed citizenry, but a more manipulable one. When truth becomes a matter of tribal loyalty rather than empirical inquiry, power no longer needs to be justified. It only needs to be claimed and defended. In such a landscape, resistance requires more than debunking individual falsehoods. It requires rebuilding the very conditions for truth to matter. That means strengthening institutions of verification, protecting independent journalism, ensuring transparency in governance, and investing in public education that teaches critical reasoning over rote memorization. It also means building a culture of intellectual humility, one that values evidence, tolerates uncertainty, and resists the seduction of easy answers. Ultimately, misinformation as strategy is not just about misleading the public, it is about reshaping the public into something more passive, more reactive, more tribal, and more controllable. The threat is not only to what people know, it is to whether they believe knowledge is even worth pursuing. So was
Thank
that 6?
That was, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Judith, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Ooh, that's a lot. So let's go use like a 6 or 7 as well. Yeah,
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay. Political fog and the disappearance of truth. The erosion of truth under Project 2025 is not a single event or a singular act of deception. It is a slow, calculated process, a fogging of public life so dense that direction, certainty, and orientation are no longer accessible. This is not the outright rejection of truth, but its burial under layers of ambiguity, contradiction, and doubt. The public is not told that reality does not exist. Rather, it is presented with so many conflicting realities that it becomes paralyzed. This condition is not a byproduct of poor governance or political dysfunction. It is a strategic environment designed to disable resistance and concentrate power. It is a condition in which the disappearance of truth becomes essential to maintaining control. The fog begins with the presentation of complexity, not as a challenge to be addressed through reason, but as a mechanism of disengagement. Policy documents become unreadable. Legislation is rushed through without deliberation. Agencies are instructed to reinterpret rules without transparency. The machinery of government no longer operates with clarity. Instead, it produces a cloud of technical jargon, bureaucratic opacity, and shifting interpretations. This is not simply the consequence of a bloated state. It is a deliberate practice. The more obscure the operation of power becomes, the more difficult it is to trace responsibility or mount a coherent critique. At the heart of this fog is a collapse of narrative coherence. In a healthy democracy, the public relies on stable, transparent explanations for why decisions are made, how laws are enacted, and what values guide political leadership. Project 2025 undermines all of this by introducing dissonance into every level of communication. Statements contradict one another. Priorities shift without explanation. Institutions issue guidance one week and reverse it the next. This volatility does not only confuse, it disorients. Citizens begin to doubt not just what is true, but whether truth is even the operative category in politics anymore. This doubt becomes self-reinforcing. When the public cannot rely on clear signals from leadership, when news sources become partisan battlegrounds, when science is politicized and history is rewritten, people turn inward. They retreat into ideological communities where the line between fact and belief is increasingly blurred. Within these communities, truth becomes a function of identity. What is real is what is affirmed by one's tribe. The result is not merely epistemic division, it is epistemic fragmentation, a nation where shared reality no longer exists, and therefore where consensus becomes structurally impossible. This fragmentation is not accidental. It is the intended outcome of a project that views democratic cohesion as a threat. Cohesion enables mobilization. Shared truth enables solidarity. Agreement enables resistance. The fog ensures that none of these things can form. In this context, even those who oppose Project 2025 find themselves trapped. They struggle to counter misinformation, but the volume and velocity of distortion makes it impossible to keep up. The architecture of confusion is designed to overwhelm. It saturates every channel, infects every discourse, and renders every attempt at clarity vulnerable to misinterpretation or dismissal. Within this fog, leadership itself changes character. Under Project 2025, leaders are not expected to provide vision or consistency. They are expected to perform authority. Their power is measured not by competence, but by dominance. They deliver not coherent policy, but affective certainty. They speak with conviction even when their claims contradict evidence, law, or previous statements. This performance does not resolve confusion, it deepens it. But it also disciplines the public. It signals that clarity is no longer expected, that submission rather than understanding is the appropriate response to authority. I think that was 6. I'll go on if you want, but
Oh, that was 6. Thank you. And you can raise your hand again. That's fine, but we can get Chris to do the next 6, like the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, and then that little bit.
Someone will stop me. I have the book, but I follow on the screen. So is it in such an environment?
Yes.
Okay. Truth does not disappear with a single lie. It dissolves through exhaustion. Citizens no longer know which documents to read, which data to trust, which institutions to believe. They abandon the effort, and in doing so, they cede the terrain of reality to those most willing to dominate it. Political fog is not about replacing one truth with another. It is about all truths equally inaccessible, so that power becomes the only stable reference point. This disappearance has profound consequences for every domain of civic life. Policy becomes reactive rather than deliberative. Law becomes fluid, enforceable only when it serves political ends. Journalism loses its audience or is repurposed as a spectacle. Education collapses under pressure to simplify, neutralize, or avoid controversy. The very practices that once preserved democratic accountability, scrutiny, investigation, debate, become ineffective. They rely on a clarity that no longer exists. The moral impact of this process is just as severe. Without truth, accountability loses its anchor. Without clarity, intention becomes irrelevant. Without consistency, principle becomes performance. The public becomes cynical not only about politics, but about the possibility of integrity itself. Leaders who lie brazenly are not punished. They are admired for their audacity. Institutions that contradict themselves are not corrected, they are tolerated as simply part of the game. Ethics becomes situational, honesty becomes quaint. The fog changes not only what people believe, but how they understand the very concept of belief. Project 2025 weaponizes this disorientation. It does not need a coherent ideology because confusion itself functions as ideology. It presents the world as too complex to fix, too divided to unify, too unstable to govern through deliberation. In this worldview, strong men are necessary. Dissent is destabilizing, and the only truth is the preservation of order. This is the logic of authoritarianism, not in the form of overt terror, but in the form of ambient uncertainty that makes resistance feel futile and comprehension feel impossible. And yet, even with the fog, the possibility of clarity remains, not through grand narratives or definitive truths, but through practices of attention, patience, and rigor. Rebuilding truth is not about returning to simplicity. It is about refusing the seduction of confusion. It requires institutions that are transparent even when they are imperfect. It requires education that fosters doubt as a method, not a destination. It requires media that refuses both sensationalism and false equivalency. And it requires citizens who are willing to wrestle with complexity without surrendering to cynicism. The fog will not lift on its own. It is actively maintained, but it can be thinned with language that names reality, with laws that demand transparency, with civic spaces that privilege understanding over dominance, with leadership that tells the truth even when it's inconvenient, with communities that insist on coherence not as conformity, but as mutual intelligibility. The disappearance of truth is not an accident, it's a tactic, but it is not yet irreversible. The task before us is not only to expose lies, it is to rebuild the conditions on which truth can matter again.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. All right. Judith, did you want to read the next like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
sure.
Thanks.
Yes. How confusion keeps power safe. Power thrives in darkness, but in a democracy where transparency is a stated virtue and accountability a foundational principle, the powerful cannot rely on secrecy alone. They require another mechanism, one more compatible with the appearance of openness. That mechanism is confusion. Confusion is not the absence of information, it is the overproduction of fragmented, contradictory, and destabilizing information designed not to conceal the truth, but to make it inaccessible. Project 2025 understands this well. It does not simply operate in an environment of confusion. It cultivates one because confusion is the most effective way to neutralize dissent while preserving the illusion of legitimacy. At its core, confusion protects power by disrupting the chain of understanding that connects cause to consequence. When citizens cannot identify who is responsible for a policy, cannot interpret the meaning of legislation, and cannot evaluate the credibility of public statements, they lose the ability to assign blame or demand change. This epistemic paralysis is not accidental, it is engineered. Bureaucratic language is made deliberately opaque. Government websites are disorganized or incomplete. Press briefings contradict previous announcements. Figures in authority change narratives midstream. In such a system, clarity becomes not just rare, it becomes radical. This fogging of meaning serves several strategic purposes. First, it disables accountability. If no one knows who wrote a policy, who implemented it, or why it was changed, then no one can be held responsible for its consequences. If public data is unreliable or selectively released, criticism becomes speculative. If every fact is contested, no narrative can take hold long enough to mobilize a public response. Confusion thus functions as a shield. It absorbs outrage, diffuses attention, and allows harmful decisions to proceed without organized resistance. Second, confusion protects hierarchies of expertise and access. In a truly democratic system, knowledge must be distributed widely enough for people to make informed decisions about their lives and communities. But when information becomes labyrinthine, when understanding public policy requires advanced degrees, legal fluency, or full-time commitment, citizens become dependent on intermediaries. Those intermediaries, often journalists, analysts, or technocrats, can be dismissed as partisan, elitist, or untrustworthy. The result is a public trapped between complexity and mistrust, unable to navigate the system on its own. This state of dependency consolidates power among those who already have it. Legal firms, lobbying groups, and well-funded think tanks maintain the capacity to decode and manipulate complex systems, while ordinary citizens are left to react with incomplete or distorted information. Project 2025 reinforces this gap by reducing funding for public research, dismantling advisory panels, and centralizing authority in politically loyal figures rather than independent experts. The public is not only disoriented, they are structurally disempowered from making sense of the system that governs them. Third, confusion fuels division, which further protects entrenched power. When facts are unclear and narratives fragmented, people rely more heavily on identity and ideology to interpret events. This leads to tribalism, where the validity of a claim depends on who is making it rather than whether it is true. Disagreements become irresolvable because they are no longer about policy, they are about worldview. In this atmosphere, the powerful no longer need to justify their decisions on universal terms. They need only to maintain the loyalty of their base, whose perception of reality has already been shaped by confusion. This tribalism serves to protect power not only from critique but from change. Competing groups, each convinced of their own exclusive truth, become incapable of forming broad coalitions. Movements fracture over epistemic boundaries. Debates devolve into accusations of bias. Opponents of Project 2025 waste energy fighting one another rather than confronting the project itself. Confusion does not only isolate individuals, it isolates movements. And isolated movements cannot generate the scale of resistance required to challenge systemic transformation.
Wow.
I think that was 6, but I'll go on if you want.
No. Thank you. Thank you. Christine, can you close this out?
Yeah, I'll bring it to the end here. The fourth, confusion reframes governance as performance. In an environment where few expect coherence or consistency, the metric for leadership shifts from competence to visibility. Politicians who dominate the news cycle, who speak in absolutes, who generate emotional reactions, are perceived as strong, even when their policies are incoherent or damaging. Project 2025 capitalizes on this by elevating personalities over institutions, loyalty over deliberation, and certainty over truth. In this model, the appearance of control replaces actual understanding. Power becomes spectacle. And in a society trained to expect constant crisis, confusion can even be comforting. Complexity is reframed as chaos, clarity is cast as a naivete. People who come to accept that they will never fully understand the system, and so they stop trying. They focus on their private lives. They disengage. They adopt a pragmatic cynicism. All sides are corrupt. No truth is absolute. The best one can do is survive. This is not apathy in its traditional sense. It is a defensive response to structural bewilderment, and it leaves power unchallenged. The final and perhaps most profound way confusion keeps power safe is by undermining imagination. When the systems that govern our lives become unintelligible, it becomes harder to imagine alternatives. If we cannot explain how we arrived at the present, we cannot envision how we might construct a different future. Confusion thus becomes a kind of cage, not one made of force, but of disorientation. It teaches people not to ask why, not to expect clarity, not to believe that things can be otherwise. This is the true danger of Project 2025. Not only that it dismantles democratic structures, but that it does so in a way that renders those structures unintelligible. By the time people realize what has been lost, they no longer have the language or frameworks to articulate the loss. Confusion becomes the atmosphere in which governance takes place, and power becomes ambient, ever present, but nowhere clearly located or named. There is no single solution to this condition. The antidote to confusion is not simplification, it is structured clarity. It is the commitment to transparency, the cultivation of public literacy, and the refusal to let technical complexity become a barrier to democratic participation. It requires institutions that explain not only what they do, but how and why. It requires journalism that contextualizes as well as reports. It requires leaders who prioritize understanding over domination. Most of all, it requires a public willing to slow down in a system designed to accelerate confusion. A public willing to question easy answers, trace causes to consequences, and demand coherence from those in power. Clarity is not always comfortable, but it is essential. Without it, democracy becomes theater, citizenship becomes hollow, and power operates without constraint. Project 2025 does not fear being challenged by a better idea. It fears being understood for what it truly is. And that is why it wraps itself in confusion, because confusion, more than repression or violence, is the tool that keeps power safe in plain sight.
Thank you. And then, as you can see, there's a concept map for the hidden threat.
Not to be weird, but stop. You look just like my AD. And I tell him I see you at the park all the time. He has the same dog, everything. Because I almost hollered at you one time.
Hi, I think someone's unmuted.
Yeah. Okay. Was really well timed though. Okay. Anyway, so this is the concept map, their core tactic confusion, leading to the psychological framework, mechanisms of obfuscation, information management tools, impact of public engagement, or on public engagement, then cultural narrative and strategic outcome, paralyzed citizenry. And as we were reading through this, and we'll get to discussion like ASAP right now, but I wrote here, where have we seen this already? Like, all I could think is we've seen it, So, yeah. Dr. Melissa, I believe you are up first.
Yeah, unless Christine was going to go, but
Yeah, I think she had her hand up to read though.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. So one thing is that this is certainly happening in so many areas now, as far as the fire hose, like even with the Epstein release of documents, it's like fire hose. You don't know what's just a rumor that someone wrote someone an email versus someone was really literally involved in abuse of children. So we're still sorting that out. Um, so for sure it's happening. It seems to me once again, there is more aggression and force being used than than is suggested in this take on Project 2025, which suggests there's another influence going on in addition to Project 2025, which is sort of that fascistic influence. But I just don't know if anyone here has actually read the original Project 2025 and whether the confusion is actually something they talk about, let's do this, or whether this is an analysis of what will be used. So I was going to, I'll just say one more thing about that then, because what also occurs to me is that when you have confusion and these nonlinear strategies being used, um, it seems to me from a family systems perspective, you want some nonlinear interventions, but you do want the clarity, everything they said, I agree with, but you also need some nonlinear interventions. And I think this is what you see, like with I think it's Ro Khanna who and Massey who demanded the Epstein files. That is a nonlinear intervention. It's saying, "Oh yeah, you with this, and this. Okay, Epstein." And
Right.
I think it is okay to have these things that run across all of that Mishigas, the confusion and all of that. So I think we need like a multi-prong attack. I think we need creativity, plays, music, all of that, art. Where's Banksy? I don't know. When we need Banksy.
We
Um,
need Banksy.
we need Banksy, but these sort of non-linear interventions, and then these out of left field. Okay, well, oh, you want ice? Epstein.
Right. Right.
That's
I hear
those are
you.
my
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Multi-pronged approach. But yeah, you're right. All right, Constance, you're up next.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment. Is that where we are right now? Or are
That's where we are
okay,
at.
all
We're at
right, okay,
discussion.
okay. Of course, Trump is the perfect avatar for all of this. He's just like out of central casting. As
As he would
confusion
say.
all the time. Every word of that comes out of his mouth is deliberately false and misleading. If it isn't outright false, it's so confusing it might as well be. So um I think, frankly, my theory of the case is that Trump has been talking privately with Putin for years. And I think he's been groomed I think he's been the student at his knee, learning all of these techniques. During his first term, he spoke to Putin without anybody. Usually you're supposed to have a minder there, person who takes notes, translator, several people who are uh, witnessing your conversation. He would have none of that.
Of course
He
not.
didn't have an interpreter except the Russian interpreter. So I think all of those calls were training calls, or attaboy calls, sort of thing. And he now knows the playbook so well, he doesn't need maybe, he doesn't need to study so much. He is just part of him.
Mhm.
So, you know, and yet here we are. So, um, we're uh, we're a country that's almost born for being a sap to this approach because we are so diffuse and we pride ourselves on being, and my generation, I have to say, gave birth to some of this, that, well, you have facts, well, we have facts too, so there. Um, so I think it's only grown over the years. Um, there, I actually think the wind in its sails is getting less less pervasive. And that's why Trump is so bound and determined to take this last stand in the elections. His policies haven't worked. His people are on to him more.
Let's hope so.
And so he's got only one card left to play, basically.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
why we've got to really step up and over these next 10 months.
yeah, I agree. Well, thank you, Constance.
Hmm.
I agree. All right, Judith.
Yeah, building on what Melissa remarked on about whether the confusion was actually part of Project 2025, I have the impression it was not. I mean, it's very useful. I agree with what the author says in the chapter, but even before the election last November, I mean, Ed Spires did lots of presentations on Project 2025. It was right out there, and it's like you can't believe that they published their entire plan, but it was clear. If their real goal was to confuse, they wouldn't have put out the plan so clearly. So I think, yes, it's very effective what they're doing. I agree with what the author is saying, but I wonder sometimes, actually, this is another point, whether it's entirely deliberate, because we have a lot of silly people in government who don't really know even how to put together a sentence. They misuse terms sometimes. So they do contradict each other, yes. And this does have the effect of sowing confusion in the public mind. But sometimes I wonder if it's deliberate or just unintentional because they're a pack of fools. So I really wonder sometimes about that. And the inaccessibility part of it, I mean, yes, they do some of that, deliberate obfuscation, but some of it is just in a bureaucracy. It's in the nature of a bureaucracy. And what you need to deal with that is a more educated public, and not everyone in the public is inclined to be educated. And so you have this, I mean, even before Trump, before his first term, even, some people tuned out of things because they were just too complex. People want
Right.
things simple so they can get back to their football games or whatever, And so they don't want to devote the time to understanding complexity. And so what the author says is true. That's one of the things that can weaken democracy. But I think it was happening to an extent before Trump even came on the scene. So those are my observations. Yeah, thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Let's just say sports ball and not just say football, okay?
Okay.
Because that wounded my soul.
I'm
All
sorry,
right.
Cecilia.
That's okay. That's okay. All right. I'll agree with that though. And yeah, thanks, Judith. All right. Marta, you're up next.
Hi. Yeah, I have notes all over the place on this one and kind of responding to everybody who said something so far. To me, this sort of answered the question of why Trump? And he is just a master at this. And I think Constance was the one saying that she felt like he'd had some coaching before. And I was thinking, really? And then I thought, it's not complicated to tell someone, keep them on their toes, say one thing, do another, let them think you're going to be over here and then you're really over there. We can all kind of grasp those strategies. And I agree. I don't think it took that much for him to take that in. It's page 103. He's a master of dissonance. It's that second to last paragraph. we joke that he chickens out. And he does when he stood up to, but he also blows with the wind all the time. And it is very confusing. And then if you look at how many things are named the opposite of what they actually are, like the SAVE Act or DEI is not efficient, and it has not at all been in our favor, or the big beautiful bill, which is only beautiful for billionaires and prison owners, or even things like mandating Bibles in school, but then allowing all these things to happen that are totally against what would be considered Christian teachings. It is just this, or ignoring judge rulings. All of it is completely a chaotic confusion. And the one thing that gave me hope is locally, our prospect, our high school students, they were out demonstrating today. So the paragraph that said about young people being raised in an environment, that they get cynical and confused and they don't really learn anything. I think we really need to vocally and if brainstorm about tangible ways to support students, because when they walk out and do these things, they're putting something on the line. It's very different than when we go to protests on a day we have free anyway. They're risking, retribution with their school or missing a class they need.
Yeah.
So I think we need to have faith in people who are trying to do something. And I guess we have to understand complexity in order to get to clarity and simplicity as the goal. So, 7 seconds to spare.
Good job. Thanks so much, Martha. All right, Bruce, you are up next.
Good evening. Okay. I think Judith might have hit on this at the beginning of what she said. I don't see that this chapter is necessarily consistent with what we've read in previous chapters, because this talks about confusion and not having the truth. And yet in other chapters, they want the truth. They want one ideology. They want, everyone to be the same. So I don't know that there's consistency here. And yes, I do see that Trump does a lot of what's in here, like the logic of an authoritarian is not having or having uncertainty, and that he likes to get out front. That's something that was mentioned as well. But I can tell you that even with this confusion that he's generating, he certainly has done a lot. There's chaos. That's what he's known for. It hasn't been as effective as they want. Look at the poll numbers that are going on at the current time. He keeps dropping. Yes, it may have been effective to gotten him elected, but since that time, the numbers have really been dropping by his policies, and what people are seeing as the results, and people are questioning the facts. At least maybe not his base, but others, such as those on this call, probably all of us, question the facts and look for truth and look for evidence to support it. I mean, an example was the shootings in Minneapolis. They're telling us one thing, but we take a look at the film and we see something different. And
Right.
we recognize that. And I think a lot of people have recognized that. So those are the few comments that I have.
Oh, you still have a minute left.
It's okay.
Okay. Well, I was going to say about the confusion real quick. I think what they're focusing on is the fact that think about how we get our news. The fact that they can throw things out and they're already creating an environment where there's two truths, right? There's a left truth and there's a right truth. But then we get our news from even people on the left get their news from all these different sources. So even then it's all different, there's so many opportunities to confuse and distort. I think that uh, part of this is it's built in to create that is it that I'm not saying that that is what this means. I'm saying that that is part of it, that taking advantage of that system malfunction.
Yeah, but
Amy, you're
what
up
this
next.
chapter says is if that's the case, we shouldn't care about what's the truth. And I know I care what's the truth, and I'm sure most people here do. So, yes, it may be effective with his base, but I don't know it's effective with a lot of people.
Amy.
Okay. Two quick things. One of the things, because I was reading along on the screen, so, but I think one point it was like something conspiracy was like the word was mentioned in there. And the one thing I found interesting with that, because I don't know how many times I said this in the past, like conspiracy theorists, oh, they're quacks, they're crazy, they're, you know, whatever. But I'm like, everything, almost everything is so odd. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it's maybe not a conspiracy theory with this administration.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of like what before, oh, conspiracy theory, conspiracy theory. Like, well, maybe not now. But also too, the other thing I'm thinking are just with the chaos and confusion, I'm just thinking like psychologically. A leader is like, okay, if you want to create confusion, chaos, your nervous system is like on hypervigilance overdrive, and it's just dun, 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 dun. And eventually most people, I mean, you just kind of start to wear down.
Yeah.
And that is the goal. But I will say that, again, like somebody pointed out, maybe not so much with his supporters, but I do see that people are, like the non-supporters, are starting to at least question. So maybe it's not as wearing down as maybe the goal is.
Yeah, let's hope so. I keep saying, I mean, I keep seeing more and more. I did have some good news real quick. Do y'all know who Bailey Sarian is? No? Okay. Bailey Sarian is a really big YouTube creator. She has millions of followers. She's one of those who does true crime and puts makeup on at the same time. She's amazing, okay? And I just saw a video that she put out that was entitled, "What Are We Going to Do?" And it was her with no makeup on, literally puffy eyes in her street clothes, jeans, ripped jeans, sitting there crying to the camera saying, "What are we going to do, y'all? They're shooting people in the streets." And I'm like, "Where the F have you been? But thanks for coming to the party. I'm really happy that you're here. Now, let's use that. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go." I'm so happy that she's finally here. But she needs to plug in like now. I'm like, get to your local Indivisible meeting. Tara, you're up next. Did you see that?
Yeah, I'm really bad with the phone, and I'm sorry if that was me that was like talking. I'm at the park, but I'm frozen now. I was just gonna say when we were, someone was talking about the deck of cards. The only deck we got here is an Uno deck. We never know when the color's going to be changed, or it's a reverse, or it just that's all I could think of when she said that. It's like it's an Uno deck. We don't know when we're going to change directions. I would say that I'm a high school teacher. And as we were listening to this, and I'm sure we can all resonate to when we have seen responses on whether it be Facebook, Instagram, where people are saying they're all crooks. And so we're already building into what they're wanting. It's all lies. This is true. The media is bad. So we're seeing it in full face right now. I'm calling this presidency the 911 of democracy. We're losing towers right and left. But what I try to tell with my students is I only speak in facts, and I let them ask me what I think if they ask, because if I tell them, I feel like I lose that credibility with them. But I will show them videos, I will show them things that are happening, and I say, this is what happens, what do you think? These are true facts right in front of you. I can't change anything. And I feel like if we go at it with that angle, then it's indisputable. Now you can interpret it, I get that, but the man is dead. Is that true? He got shot. That is true. I mean, if we just stick in facts to it, I don't understand how we could go any other direction but
Right.
against. But that's just kind of where I'm at on it.
Thank you. I agree. And thank you for being that honest with your students and allowing them to do those critical thinking that like develop those critical thinking skills.
Yes. And what I was going to say really quick is that people on there I see this constantly, and I'm sure others do too, that we indoctrinate students. I said, if I can indoctrinate my students, I'd get them to class on time. I'd get them to do their
Right.
homework. I'd actually get them to wear deodorant and use soap, but I can't. But it's the irony is, and that's what's being fed to them. And coming from people that have never stepped foot in a classroom, most likely don't have kids themselves. So again, there's people that think they're experts that are speaking on a topic that they know nothing about. I just
Right.
wanted to put that. I'm done.
That's all right. Thank you so much, Tara. I appreciate you.
Mhm.
All right, Dr. Melissa, you're back up.
I just wanted to respond to the questions about to what extent is 47 kind of in the know and aligning with things and going back and forth. And while he could be, but I think also his backers and his people in his cabinet that are maybe orchestrating are just, I think they just wind him up and say, oh, say something about this and say it like this, and I think he's able to read his lines to an extent, and he goes off script a lot. And sometimes he just, pontificates about something that is really horrendous and in such a way. I mean, when he's off script, he's probably worse than when he's on script. But I don't know that he's a big mover and shaker. I think he's in on it. But I do think he just sort of also, besides randomly spouting, I think people do wind him up and set him in one direction, then another. So just my opinion.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I'm getting messages. And that was just a squirrel moment. I apologize. I will do better. J.A. Jones, hello. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Welcome.
I had two things. First of all, with analyzing the personality characteristics of Donald J. Trump, I wouldn't give Putin as very much credit because Donald Trump was raised in the midst of all kinds of horrible chaos. His father was terrible, just like him. And he's the guy that ripped off the government, and that's how he made a lot of his millions is with the affordable housing that he built. And he was a slumlord. He treated his children the same way, and he took a strong liking to Donald. He was hoping his firstborn would be the one to carry on the Trump insanity legacy, but it was Donald who could see by the family dynamics who was getting their way and who was not, who was being treated terribly. Um, and his father always bailed him out because he loved his persona. So he's really never had to deal with consequences, but he has had to deal with getting the approval of his father.
Yeah.
So I would think that, I'm just guessing, I'm just going to make the story up, that Putin is just another person of like mind. And Donald Trump was raised to deal. That's what you do. And he's dealing with Putin. Um, I don't, I think Putin's a little maybe out of his league. or he's out of Putinseek, or however that goes.
Yeah.
But right. But Donald is of like mind, and so um, he knows where to go. He knows where to get the help. He gravitates toward people like his father. His grandfather was even the same way. He just ripped people off. And Alaska with a pallet company or something like that. Anyway, so I wanted to point that out, that it's, although, maybe Miller and Vogt and some of those people, they sit there and they can actually do these things um, consciously, like, the description. But I think most of it is just happening subliminally or unconsciously because this is who they are.
Right.
The other interesting thing is I have a couple of friends who who are betrayed partners, and they
Oh.
have. Oh, we out of time now?
Yeah, that was time. Sorry. But also, and you can raise your hand again. But also, I needed to remind everybody we have a hard stop tonight at 6:30 because there is a 7 p.m. Event tonight. So we need to switch over to action items. So as you tell me what you were going to talk about, Constance, add an action item to it.
Oh,
Well, thank you so much for that segue. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking of kind of segues because we're not as off guard as we were 10 years ago. We know more about what he's all about and what he's going to do. We know he's going to, he's going to use every trick in the book before, during, and after the elections to throw the elections. Um, uh, we know, but we know he's weaker now. The polls show that he's weaker. People aren't buying the "I alone can fix it" anymore. He's like the curtain has been pulled away from the Wizard of Oz. We know we've got his number more. Even people who voted for him now, and you can see it in the polls. Black people, Latinos, young men, all have dramatically fallen away from him. So I don't think we're as bad off as we were 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. We've got his number, and we have to, as Democrats, we have to take our vitamin D and grow our spine and prepare for what we need to do between now and December or January of this year to thwart everything we know he's up to at this point. And I think we are in a stronger position to do that.
Thank you. I happen to agree with you, actually. Christine, Chris.
Okay. I think Trump was just the perfect person to be the front man. He's been grifting for decades. I
All his
mean,
life.
he could sell steaks with his name on it. He, started selling his name on businesses, buildings. I think he just did some sort of trademark application and I can't remember what it was about anymore, but so that everything that gets sold with Trump and this particular goal is he gets some profits from it, or because you would have to, if you use those words, you would have to pay him for the use of the words. But I think what they didn't expect is that he would be, and by the Project 2025 originators, is that he'd be so unpredictable and uncontrollable. They counted on him ignoring the law because he has a history of suing everybody, but he's gone beyond what was needed to take control. And as long as he's up there and he used the affordability, and now affordability is a hoax, I think people are going to be against him. And so what I wrote down is he's a wild card, and he engaged in overkill, both, literally and well, in
Figuratively.
fact, yes, yes. It just made me, I know I've got a couple seconds here. It made me think of the great Santini when Constance, I think it was Constance who was talking, or whoever was talking about this generational Trump persona. Okay, yeah, JA. That's right, I wrote JA on here. Okay, and Pat Conrad, but it sounds like the great Santini.
Actually, I was just thinking about that the other night because I saw that movie on my thingy. Okay, my brain is not I have not eaten enough today. That is my I need to eat. Okay, Ellen, you're up next.
Hey, okay, yeah, okay, yeah. Thank you. It's so good to be here. This is my favorite forum. I had been in the with the Northwest Suburbs Organizing for Action 10 years ago in one of the beginning classes. And so I think, action items, I am running for Congress, trying to challenge Quigley in this area. And I've been writing these questionnaires. People say that there's no way you can win, but I think really want to, the idea really is to speak out about these things and the corruption and get my own thoughts together that we need like a commission to open up, like the Church Commission was exposing the CIA and the corrupt forces behind this kind of project for, this Project 2025 and Trump. And so I, someone asked about whether it's the real book. And I mean, to me, this disinformation is exactly, I think it's a great chapter. That's exactly what they're doing. I studied advertising and, it's just so weird the way it is. And I also think that it's more, there was a lot of research on that it's the kind of black market, organized crime, Russian mafia, Israeli mafia. Those are the forces, this deep state behind Trump. And I've been studying it for a while. I do think it's based in this ultra Zionist kind of not Nazi fascist kind of group that is pushing Trump into waging war. A lot of it's coming up because of Epstein. They were all related. And okay,
Thank
time
you.
out. Thank you.
All right, Joe. Oh, I'm sorry, I just muted you. Thank
Hi, it's Joe from South Carolina. Interesting thing I heard today was that there's a new app, and the name of the app is something like, "What is Trump going to do next?" that you can place bets in.
Oh dear.
In Bitcoin, of course. And I believe it's owned by two of his sons.
Oh, geez.
Right. Because how else can they make money off of us, right?
Of course, yes. I haven't verified that to know if it's true or not, but that's one thing that I did hear about. What can we do? Don't give in to confusion. Don't leave power go unchallenged. And do not let confusion to dismantle you. A lot of you here on this call, I've been on this call for about a year and maybe even less, but are doing things. If you're not doing something, attach yourself to someone who is doing something. And pretty soon you'll be one of those who gets involved in an indivisible group and becomes a leader, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Power on. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. All right. JA, you're back up.
Thank you. So to wrap up that other part, that's who he is. That's how he was raised. That's how his siblings were raised. He had a sister who was a judge, Marianne. She did the same things as he did. Not on a grand scale, And so then I started talking about, I have some friends who, you know how there's AA and Al-Anon. Well, this is for betrayed partners. And these are people whose partners are sex addicts. And I'm hearing a lot of the same things coming from them as far as behaviors of their partners. And, you know, they're not famous, they're not on a grandiose, you know, it's not grandiose, but so that makes sense. And so then I started tuning into um their one meeting once a week. And I'm hearing and I'm learning a lot about how they are protecting themselves and you know, gaining the confidence and all of that to you know, to get rid of these partners, to get away from them, and you know, and just how to deal with it. And we just don't know how to deal with this guy. So that's been very interesting. The other thing is that we talked about the schools and what I heard here locally when they had a walkout, and also there was another one, I think it was in Oklahoma, where the superintendents or the principals, they're not punishing these students for walking out. They're turning it into a learning experience. One of them I know is expecting them to kind of come back with an essay as far as what they know, what they've learned, and then also they're going to talk about how to do it a little bit differently next time. So they're not expelling them or anything like that. So I was glad to hear that.
Yeah, I know that many of them aren't allowing them to make up their work because they want them to understand that they have to give up something in order to practice their rights, which is true. I mean, many of us have to give up our work hours to practice our rights, you know, that kind of thing, which is understandable. Or we have to take paid time off or the like. Same thing goes. Dr. Melissa, you are up next.
Thanks, JA. And so what do we do?
Oh, I forgot that part.
Oh
That's
yeah,
okay.
okay. You can come back. But so one thing is that I think creativity are, as I said before, arts, and I wish we had a group, like a splinter group from this that's doing that. Will they come back and show us what they're doing with art, music, all of that? That would be another piece that would be really great. I also think, and I know Cecilia, you know the name of this group because it shifted a little bit. It's the one that Christine Schuyler is doing, and that's a survivors group. But I think that's another nice, kind of like one of those converging methods that we're talking about that can help to puncture confusion and also bring in people. So maybe you can say what that
Survivors Against the Epstein Class. And I
survive.
think that we will bring in Christine to discuss that and her efforts once she gets that on the ground and that's more formulated. She and I are going to have discussions about that and that going forward. I'm so excited about that, y'all.
Yeah.
I'm not excited about, you know, everything that that we're going to be discussing, but I'm excited about her efforts and all of that. So yeah, Melissa,
Right. And
please finish. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I also sort of volunteer to be engaged in that. And I think it's something people here need to know about, and we can all get together and kind of push on that because survivors could be sexual assault survivors, sexual abuse survivors in childhood. It could be betrayal partners. It could be survivors of domestic abuse. So there's a lot of but the idea is to have to lift up survivors and also have empower survivors and to come in because I've been saying that we have, you know, we had QAnon on the other side bringing those folks in, but now what have we been doing to help?
You're right. You're right. JA, you're back up. And we are, whew, go on. We're almost there.
Okay, so what I try to do, and it would be, of course, great if everyone were on the same page about something. But the point is that every time, I mean, there's so much talk about him. We don't need to be talking about him. We just need to decide what we want in a democracy and then pursue it. We don't need to turn our heads every time we hear his name called. We don't need to respond to the media and if anything, we need to say, you know what, will you put something else on? We don't care about this guy. We have our plans and we're going forward. So And that then flips to then they have to keep an eye on us because they don't know what we're going to do. But we do. We know what we want and we're going to do it. And we want the Constitution, and we want the Constitution to be what we follow. So if I'm just going to make this story up now too, that if I go and my car gets blocked in by ICE agents, I'm firing. I am self-defense. This is self-defense. They're illegal. They know they're illegal. And Trump knows they're illegal. The Supreme Court knows they're illegal. And I'm going to scream illegal. And I'm going to scream self-defense. I'm going to scream citizen's arrest. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm going to go about it my way. And I'm going to fire. And if anybody's going to come after me or whatever, it better be the local law enforcement and not these thugs.
Right.
So, and we also have to have that mentality that you don't own me. I don't have to do anything that you say. I don't have to believe that this is legal. I don't have to believe that it's important that you get the brown people out of here. Or I am not so confused. I am not confused. You can't confuse me. I see this is black and white. This is racism, period. And it's all about money.
That's right. And it's been here from the beginning. You set the system up against me. Thank you. All right, Dr. Melissa.
I just want to say, first of all, stay safe, JA. Second, and everyone stay safe. All of us stay safe. Keep it peaceful. But also, I wanted to mention Vision Forward. JA reminded me of that, and that this is one of the other spokes in this wheel that we're creating. And it's also the communication side of it, which I think that truth sandwich, for example, it does kind of combat that confusion, because you can say anything. You get to give the positive, the truth, and then the other affirmation, affirming the person. And as long as you're affirming and you're putting your truth out there, then it doesn't have to be something that directly addresses what 47 is saying and all that. We just sort of get the truth out there. And also, I just think Vision Forward as a general thing, that I think JA reminded me of that. I agree. We just need to go forward with and this is what a lot of people are saying, like Heather Cox Richardson, other historians are saying, what do we want? What do we want? A lot of things have been destroyed. We might not get back everything that we lost in terms of our international status, even some of our domestic status, but we can create a better place. We can make it better. What do we want? Let's put that together. So,
gosh, wouldn't that be great? Can you imagine a better place for our people, but not necessarily for us on the world stage, where we cared more about the people that make, instead of what we look like, as opposed to, goodness, I can't even put words to it. It's so strange. Marta, you're here. You're up. You can unmute yourself. Okay, there you go.
I just wanted to comment to Bruce when Bruce was like, I don't understand. I haven't been confused. And Bruce, you're so smart.
Right?
And you need to give yourself credit for all the times you've explained stuff to us, stayed on and said, I'll do this more in depth in the second hour if anybody needs a better understanding of how this works. You've done that a lot. And I actually think that is one of the ways that we can fight against this confusion, is either share our own area of knowledge when it intersects with something that's happening now, or recruit people we know. Like, I'm thinking of two friends of mine that retired from pretty big jobs in the Fed. Recruit them to be sharing their information on what they were doing and how it was really helping all of us, these government jobs, and how they help us all. But anyway, I just had to smile, Bruce, when you said, I don't know what you mean about confusion, because I was thinking, I do.
Right? So. Yeah, I understand. Sometimes he doesn't understand how brilliant he really is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce, are you now going to very humbly say,
well, I thank you for the compliments, but yeah, I don't know I deserve all that, but any of that praise. But and I've said this at our meetings before, and Stacey Abrams has stated this in her 10 Steps in Fighting Authoritarianism. You got to know what you're fighting against, and that means to educate. And I have a background in government. It's not just being a lawyer, it's also I have a background in government, and I see these articles or watch these YouTubes or whatever, and I find them instructive and informative, and I want to share the information. And that's something that people need to do, because you need to know what you're going to be standing up against, and how to combat it. And in addition, Stacey Abrams, not only she has that website about her 10 steps fighting authoritarianism. Well, it also is how authoritarianism develops and then how to fight it. And we talk about a lot of these steps all the time. Writing your Congress people, participating in demonstrations. She has all peaceful suggestions, and she's not the only one. We learned it also in A Million Rising with Indivisible. They had these suggestions, and Indivisible keeps sending us weekly emails with suggestions.
But what we're saying, Bruce, is that it would never occur to you not to be well informed. It would never occur to you not to be up to date. It occurs to many people not to be well informed and not to be up to date. It occurs to many people to be anyway. Thank you very much for everything that you do. I'm sorry I took up the last 20 seconds of your time,
That's okay.
But we have a hard stop at 6:30, so I want to just go over. I dropped a lot of stuff in the chat for action items. You will be sent all of it in the recap, but I will say, and it will be posted onto a Substack as soon as I get caught up this weekend. And I will say, I'm going to go over it real quickly. The first one was to build a truth infrastructure locally, and create a standing truth team in your group, and which is a really good idea, to just kind of go over the disinformation, misinformation kind of ideas. And that then gives you a way to teach it within your own group, train people in critical media skills. Huge, right? Okay. Organize trusted messenger networks. That could come in very handy in the near future. Counter manufactured complexity with structured clarity. Protect and elevate independent information sources. This is something that our friend Alfeo is really interested in, is the fact that the right has a huge lead on us when it comes to independent media. When it comes to not legacy, not the legacy, they even have a lead on us there too, but we need to support independent media journalists. Okay. And we'll give you a list